The rain came sideways. May had the clinic door half-locked when she heard it. Not a knock. More like something hitting wood. Soft. Desperate. She pulled the door open. A boy stood there. 7 years old. Maybe less. Soaked through, shoes that didn't fit, eyes that had seen something they shouldn't have. He wasn't crying. That was the first thing that got her. Kids that age, out in rain like this, alone, they cry. This one didn't. He just looked at her like she was the last door left in the world. May stepped back. Come in. He came in fast. Like he'd been waiting for permission. She crouched down to his level. You hurt anywhere? He shook his head. What's your name? Jinsu. Okay, Jinsu. She kept her voice flat and calm the way she learned in the army. Who brought you here? He pointed at the tree line across the road. The darkness between the pines. Bad men are coming. May straightened up and looked out the window. Nothing yet. But the road beyond the tree line had a faint shine on it. Headlights. Still far. Moving slow. She looked at the boy's wrists. Left wrist, a phone number in black marker. Right wrist, one word. Shelter. She looked at that word for 2 full seconds. Then she turned off the clinic lights, grabbed her go bag from behind the reception desk, took the boy's hand, and walked straight to the back door. She didn't know his last name. She didn't know who wrote on his wrists. She didn't know what was in those trees. She went anyway. 2 hours later, inside a locked ranger station 12 miles up the mountain, May sat across from Jinsu while he ate crackers from her kit bag. She called the number on his wrist. One ring. A woman's voice. Controlled. Barely. Is he safe? He's eating crackers in a ranger station, May said. Who are you? His mother. Don't let anyone near him. I'm coming. Before you hang up, May kept her voice level. Whose boy is this really? Silence. Then, his father is Yoon Jae-won. The line went dead. May set the phone down on the table. Outside, wind moved through the pines. Jinsu looked up at her with cracker crumbs on his lip. She knew that name. Everyone in 3 counties who read international news knew that name. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from? Tell me your city, your country. I want to see exactly how far these stories are traveling. And if you're new here, welcome. This is Lily's Afro-Korean Mafia Tales, where every story hits different. Make sure you're subscribed before this gets good, because it's about to get very good. 36 hours earlier. Seoul, South Korea. Yoon Jae-won was in a glass-walled boardroom on the 42nd floor, signing his name on a real estate acquisition worth $200 million. His pen moved steady. His face was composed. This was his public face, the one that belonged on magazine covers and shareholder reports. The one that gave nothing away. His second-in-command, Do Hyun, leaned down and said 2 sentences in his ear. Yoon's pen kept moving. He finished signing. He capped the pen. He slid the documents across the table and said, "We'll continue Thursday," and walked out before anyone could respond. In the elevator, alone, he looked at the photograph Do Hyun had forwarded to his private phone. A little boy, dark hair, standing in front of a yellow house, smiling at whoever was taking the picture. The boy had his eyes. Exactly his eyes. Below the photo, a message. Your secret has a price. Pay it, or we deliver him to Briggs. Yoon looked at the photograph for a long time. The elevator reached the lobby. He didn't get out. He rode it back up to the 42nd floor. Then he made 3 calls. The third one was to Do Hyun. Get the jet ready. Yoon landed in Montana at 4 a.m. No customs line. Private terminal, a man with a black SUV waiting on the tarmac. Do Hyun sat in the front. Yoon sat in the back with nothing in his hands and his jaw tight. The signal traced to a clinic in Crestfall, Do Hyun said. Small town. 1 main road in. The boy. Gone by the time our team arrived. Someone moved him fast. Do Hyun glanced in the rearview. There was a woman. Dr. May Dolan. Army veteran. Runs the only medical clinic in that county. She was the last one in the building. Yoon said nothing. Do Hyun pulled up May's file on a tablet and passed it back. Yoon looked at it once. Medical degree. 8 years Army. Honorable discharge. No family listed. No spouse. Photo showed a woman with short natural hair and the kind of face that looked like it had made hard decisions before and didn't apologize for them. She took him, Yoon said. Looks that way. She's not with a faction? No connection that we can find. Wrong profile. Do Hyun paused. Seems like she just opened her door. Yoon handed the tablet back. May had been awake since the boy arrived. She sat by the ranger station window with a cup of cold coffee while Jinsu slept on the cot in the back room. She'd propped 2 chairs under the door handle. Her kit bag was packed and at her feet. At 6 a.m. she heard tires on gravel. She was at the window in 3 steps. 1 car. A woman got out alone. Short dark hair, moving like someone who knew how to move, weight forward, eyes already scanning the building before her feet had stopped. She had a bag on her shoulder and her hands were visible and empty. May opened the door before she knocked. They looked at each other. May Dolan, the woman said. Sora. You called me that like you know me. I don't. But you called this number like you'd been waiting for it. May stepped aside. Come in. Hands stay where I can see them. Sora walked in. She scanned the room once, nodded at the chairs under the door handle, and said, That's good. May said, Where is he? Sora turned. Her whole body changed. The operative composure just fell off her. She walked to the back room door, pushed it open quietly, and stood in the doorway looking at her sleeping son. She stood there for a long time without moving. Then she came back. Sat down at the table. Put both hands flat on the surface. I'll tell you everything, she said. But you need to know it's going to make your life more complicated. May sat down across from her. It already is. Sora talked. May listened. 2 years ago, Sora was Yoon's head of security operations. Not his bodyguard. Higher than that. She knew the structure of his entire organization, the legitimate side and the shadow side. She was the person he trusted most. And Jinsu. Sora looked at the table. We were together for 8 months. I found out I was pregnant after things ended. She paused. I knew what happened to leverage inside that world. I knew what his enemies would do with a child. So I disappeared before I was showing. He doesn't know. He didn't. He does now. Someone found a medical record. Ran a DNA comparison against a sample from a glass at one of his events. Sora's hands pressed flatter against the table. That's the photograph they sent him. And Briggs? Sora looked up. You said deliver him to Briggs, May said. On the phone. Who is Briggs? Sora pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket and laid it on the table. A federal ID. Department of Homeland Security. Director Harlan Briggs. A man with a gray suit and a pleasant face. He's been running a weapons pipeline through Yoon's shipping containers for 3 years, Sora said. Yoon doesn't know. I found the paperwork 2 years ago and I ran before I could do anything with it. She tapped the ID. If Briggs gets Jinsu, he uses him to control Yoon. Make him complicit. Or he exposes the pipeline with Yoon's name on it and buries him. May looked at the picture of Briggs for a moment. So we're not just hiding a child, she said. No. We're sitting inside a federal conspiracy. Yes. May stood up. Walked to the window. Looked at the tree line. How long before Briggs' people find this location? 12 hours. Maybe less. The splinter faction who grabbed Jinsu works for him. When they report losing the boy, he'll redirect. May turned around. Then we need to move in 6. If you're still here, hit like. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think happens next. Subscribe and let's keep going. They packed the station in 20 minutes. Sora moved fast and quiet. May moved faster. Jinsu woke up, saw his mother, and crossed the room in 2 steps and grabbed her around the waist and held on. Sora held him back just as hard. She said something low in Korean against his hair. He nodded like it wasn't the first time he'd heard it. May gave them 30 seconds. Then, we need to go. They took May's truck. Sora sat in the back with Jinsu. May drove. No headlights until they hit the county road. She knew these mountains the way some people know their own kitchen, every switchback, every dead end, every road that looked like nothing on a map but went somewhere useful. Where are we going? Sora asked. Somewhere off-grid. Old Fire Lookout Tower. It's got a signal booster the Forestry Service installed 2 seasons ago. If we need to transmit anything. We do, Sora said. She patted her jacket pocket. I've had those files for 2 years. I never had a clean transmission window. You'll have one. They drove without talking for a while. The sun was coming up behind the mountains, turning the sky that particular gray-orange that only happens at elevation. From the back seat, Jinsu said, May. Yeah. Are you a doctor? Combat medic. Same thing, different classroom. He thought about that. Did people get hurt around you a lot? Yes. Did you fix them? Most of them. Another pause. Okay, he said. Like that settled something for him. Yoon and Do-hyun were parked at a gas station off the interstate when Do-hyun's phone went off. He listened, face neutral, then hung up. The diner, he said. They'd traced the phone signal to a truck stop 40 miles from Crestfall. Do-hyun had already sent 2 men ahead. By the time they arrived, the booth was empty, coffee cups still warm. But on the table, left behind, was a child's drawing on a paper napkin. Do-hyun put it on the seat between them. A house. A mountain. A woman with a small red cross on her shirt. And next to the woman, a figure that was clearly a child. Drawn in crayon from the kid's snack pack. Yoon picked it up carefully. He looked at it for a long time. Do-hyun watched him. Do-hyun had worked for Yoon for 11 years and had never seen this expression on his face before. It wasn't calculation. It wasn't threat assessment. It was something quieter and more complicated than both of those things. He drew where he felt safe, Do-hyun said. Yoon folded the drawing once and put it in his jacket pocket. Find the mountain. Briggs was in a car outside a federal building in Helena on a call that he kept his voice very flat for. You lost the child. The man on the other end started explaining. Briggs listened for about 4 seconds before he interrupted. I don't need the explanation. I need the location. He looked out the window. And I need it before Yoon's people find him first, because if Yoon gets to that boy before I do, I lose every piece of this. He ended the call. Looked at his deputy in the passenger seat. Pull every traffic camera between Crestfall and the county line. And find out who May Dolan is. They reached the lookout tower at 9 a.m. It sat at the top of a rocky ridge, accessible only on foot the last quarter mile. May parked the truck in a shallow gully and covered it with branches, old habit. She didn't explain it and Sora didn't ask. The tower was small. Metal stairs, an enclosed cabin at the top with a narrow deck around it. The Forestry Service signal booster was bolted to the north-facing exterior wall, a gray metal box with a blinking green light. Still active. Sora pulled out a sealed drive from her jacket lining. Not a USB. A specialized transmission drive, slim and matte black. This connects directly to the booster? It'll need an adapter, May said. She went to the storage cabinet inside the cabin and came out with a junction box. Forestry equipment. We share frequencies out here for emergency comms. Sora looked at it. That'll work. Good. But we're exposed up here. No tree cover on the ridge. How long do we have? May checked her watch. I don't know. Let's assume less than we think. They set up fast. Sora worked the connection. May stood at the deck railing with binoculars, watching the road that came up the mountain's south face. Jinsu sat on the floor of the cabin with his back against the wall, knees up, watching the adults work. After a minute he said, Mom. Sora kept working. Is my dad coming? Sora's hands paused for just a beat, then kept moving. I don't know. The men who grabbed me before, they said he sent them. They lied. Another beat of quiet. Okay, Jinsu said. Same tone as before. Like he was cataloging information and filing it somewhere. May lowered the binoculars. Down the mountain, on the south road, a faint dust cloud. Still far. But moving. Sora. I see it. How long for the transmission? Sora looked at the drive. 20 minutes minimum. The files are large. May looked at the dust cloud. We've got about 15. May went through her kit bag. Pulled out what she had. Scalpel handle, heavy steel. 2 trauma tourniquets. A large bore 4 kit with metal casing. A flashlight big enough to break a windshield. Not a gun. She didn't keep one at the clinic. She'd made that decision years ago and hadn't reversed it. Right now she was reconsidering. Sora unzipped a side panel in her bag and pulled out a compact pistol. She checked the mag, chambered a round, and set it next to the drive. May looked at it. You only have one, May said. I know. How many are coming up that road? Briggs runs 2-man advance teams. Probably 2 vehicles. For men. And the Splinter faction? They won't be far behind Briggs. They want the drive as much as he does. May picked up the flashlight. Weighted it in her hand. Okay, she said. Here's how this goes. We don't go to them. We let them come to us and we use the terrain. She looked out the deck railing at the rocky slope below the tower. Anyone coming up that quarter mile on foot has to stay on the path. Single file. There's no other way through the granite. Sora looked where May was looking. Choke point. Yes. And the boy. May turned around. Jinsu. He looked up. When I say count, you get behind that cabinet and you count to 100. Out loud if you want. You don't come out until I come get you. Not for anything. He held her eyes. Nodded once. Very serious. Good. The dust cloud resolved into 2 black vehicles parking at the base of the trail. 4 men got out. Dark clothes, no markings. Each one moved like former military, which meant they were patient and methodical and would not be rushed. May and Sora were already positioned. May at the boulder shelf 20 yards below the tower base. Sora at the tower's west staircase, out of sight. The first man hit the trail. The second followed. The third and fourth split wide, one east, one trying west, before the granite forced him back to the path. May let the first 2 come all the way to the flat shelf before she moved. She came from above and to the right. The first man heard her a half-second too late. The flashlight connected with the side of his knee, not his head. She wasn't trying to kill him, and he went down sideways into the granite and stayed there. The second man turned, and May already had the 4-kit casing swinging, and it caught him across the jaw, and he sat down hard against the rock. 2 seconds. Both down. The third man came around the path bend and saw it, and reached for his weapon. Sora stepped out from the staircase above and had her gun level before his hand cleared his holster. Don't, she said. He stopped. The fourth man was behind him. He looked at the 2 men on the ground. He looked at May standing over them with a flashlight and a kit bag. He looked at the gun. He put both hands up. May zip-tied them with the tourniquet straps, not ideal, but functional, and left them against the granite. She looked at Sora. For minutes. How's the drive? Sora was already moving back up the stairs. Still transmitting. They didn't hear the second set of vehicles until they were already at the base of the trail. The Splinter faction. Not 2 vehicles. 3. May looked down the slope from the deck railing. 6 men, maybe 7. Moving faster than Briggs' team. Less disciplined, more aggressive. She looked at the signal booster. The green light was still blinking. Sora was watching the drive. 12 more minutes. We don't have 12 minutes, May said. Then we need more time. Yoon's SUV came off the county road and onto the mountain trail at 47 miles an hour, which was approximately twice the speed the trail was built for. Do-hyun was driving. Yoon was in the passenger seat with his window down, looking at the trail camera footage on his phone that they'd pulled from the Forestry Service network. A tower. A ridge. A signal booster with a green light. He knew what Sora was doing. He'd given her the drive 2 years ago, before she disappeared. She didn't know he'd known she'd taken it. He'd let her. Because some part of him, even then, understood she was doing the right thing. There's a second group ahead of us, Do-hyun said. Moving up the trail on foot. How many? 7. Yoon looked at the mountain. We go around. There's a service road on the east face. He pulled up the forestry map. It adds 3 minutes, but puts us above them. Do-hyun turned the wheel. On the deck, May could hear them on the trail now. Not trying to be quiet. They'd seen their 4 colleagues zip-tied on the granite, and now they were moving with intent. Sora kept her eyes on the drive. May kept her eyes on the trail. 9 minutes, Sora said. The first man from the Splinter faction appeared on the flat shelf below. Then 3 more behind him. May turned to the cabin door. Jin-soo. Count. From inside, small and clear. 1, 2, 3. May picked up the scalpel handle. Looked at the 4 men on the shelf. Then something happened that she hadn't planned for. From the east slope, above the faction, above the shelf, above everything, 2 vehicles came down a service road she hadn't known existed. They stopped sideways across the slope, blocking the only retreat. 4 doors opened. Yoon got out of the front vehicle. He walked to the edge of the slope and looked down at the faction on the shelf. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He said 2 sentences in Korean. May didn't speak Korean. But every one of the 7 men on that shelf went completely still. Do-hyun stepped out beside Yoon with 3 other men flanking him. The faction leader looked up the slope. Looked at the tower. Looked at Yoon. He made a decision. The wrong one. He pulled his weapon. What happened next lasted about 90 seconds, and May watched it from the deck railing with the clinical detachment of someone who had been in field hospitals in 2 countries and understood that human violence at speed was mostly noise and misdirection. When it was over, all 7 faction members were on the ground, disarmed, not dead, and Do-hyun was zip-tying the last one with something considerably more professional than tourniquet straps. Yoon looked up at the tower. He found May on the deck. They looked at each other across the slope. Then he looked past her, through the cabin window, to where Sora was crouched over the drive. He didn't move. He just waited. This just changed everything. You know what's coming. Hit like. Subscribe. Drop a comment. Whose side are you on right now? I want to know. May came down the stairs and stopped 6 feet from Yoon. She looked at him the way she looked at every person who walked into her clinic without an appointment, quickly, completely, making up her mind before they opened their mouth. He was taller than she expected. Composed in a way that took real training, not just temperament. He had the drawing in his hand. She could see the corner of it folded in his jacket pocket. She said, "You came alone?" "I came with 4 people," he said. His English was clean and unaccented. "I left 22 behind in Seoul. I wanted this to feel like a conversation, not a siege." "It doesn't feel like either. It feels like you got here right before it went very wrong." "Yes." She looked past him at Do-hyun, who was standing at a respectful distance doing something on his phone with complete focus. "Who are you calling?" she said. Do-hyun looked up. "Yoon's legal team in New York. They need to be moving before those files finish transmitting." He held up the phone. "They're already on." May looked back at Yoon. "You knew what was on the drive." "I suspected," he said. "I've been building a case against Briggs internally for 8 months. I didn't have clean evidence. Sora did." He paused. "I didn't know she was alive until 3 days ago." "And your son?" Something moved behind his eyes. 4 days ago." May let that sit for a second. "Okay," she said. "Come up." Yoon walked into the cabin and stopped. Sora was at the transmitter, back to him. She heard the footstep and went still. In the corner, Jin-soo had counted to 100 and back to 1 and back to 100 again and was now sitting with his arms around his knees, watching the door. He looked at Yoon. Yoon looked at him. Neither of them spoke. Jin-soo uncurled his legs slowly. Stood up. He was small, even for 7, the kind of small that made him look like he'd been through something that asked more of him than his size suggested. He stood up straight and looked at this stranger with his own eyes. Yoon crouched down. Didn't speak. Didn't reach for him. Just brought himself down to the boy's level and stayed there, open, waiting. 10 seconds went by. Jin-soo took 1 step forward. Just 1. Stopped. Looked at his mother's back. Sora's shoulders had gone rigid. Another step. Jin-soo was now close enough to see the watch on Yoon's wrist. He looked at it the way 7-year-olds look at things they think are impressive. "Is that real gold?" he said. Yoon looked at the watch. "Yes." "How much did it cost?" Do-hyun, from the doorway, made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. "Too much," Yoon said. Jin-soo considered this. "My mom says you shouldn't spend too much on watches." "She's right." "I know." He glanced at Sora again. Then back at Yoon. "Are you going to be around for a while?" The cabin was very quiet. Yoon said, "If that's okay." Jin-soo looked at him for another long beat. Then he turned and walked back to his corner and sat down again. Yoon stood up. He turned and found May looking at him from across the room. She gave him nothing in her expression. Just held eye contact for a moment and then turned back to the window. The signal booster beeped twice. Sora pulled the drive out of the connection and held it in her palm. The green light on the booster was blinking faster now, transmission complete. She said, without turning around, "Where did it go?" Do-hyun answered from the doorway. 7 outlets. 2 international. The domestic legal chain is already moving. By the time Briggs gets someone to file an injunction, there's nothing left to suppress. Sora turned around. She looked at Do-hyun. Then at Yoon. "The weapons manifest," she said. "It has routing codes that go through your containers." "I know," Yoon said. "My name is on the containers. Not on the orders. A prosecutor won't care about the difference. My legal team will make them care." He said it flat, not boastful. That's what the 8 months of internal documentation was for. Sora held the drive for a second longer. Then she put it on the equipment shelf. "Briggs," she said. "He doesn't know yet," Do-hyun said. "He will in." He checked the phone, approximately 4 minutes when the first outlet publishes. Everyone in the room absorbed that. May was already at the window. The slope was clear. The faction members were still on the ground. Briggs' 4 men were still zip-tied on the lower shelf. But Briggs himself wasn't accounted for. "Where is he?" she said. Nobody answered because nobody knew. 3 miles down the mountain, Briggs' car had been parked off the service road for 40 minutes. He'd been listening to comms from his advance team right up until the comms went silent. He looked at his deputy. His deputy's phone lit up. A news alert. He read the headline and handed the phone to Briggs without saying anything. Briggs read it. He read it again. He looked out at the mountain for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "Drive." The car pulled onto the road. But not toward the mountain. Away from it. For minutes. That's all it took. May clocked the car moving away on the service road below. She watched it until it disappeared around the tree-line bend and didn't come back. He's running, she said. Do-hyun was already on the phone. He spoke in rapid Korean for 30 seconds, then switched to English. Federal Oversight Contact is receiving the file package now. Briggs' deputy director has been briefed. A hold has been placed on his travel credentials. He lowered the phone. He won't get far. Yoon was at the window beside May now. Neither of them watched the road. They were both watching the same empty space where the car had been. He'll try to buy time, Yoon said. Claim the manifests were forged. They weren't, Sora said. We know that. His lawyers will need 3 days to agree. He turned from the window. In 3 days, he has nowhere left to stand. May looked at Do-hyun. Your federal contact, how clean are they? Cleaner than Briggs, which is all we need right now. That's not an answer. Do-hyun met her eyes. It's the only one I have. May turned and picked up her kit bag from the floor. Inventoried it without thinking, scalpel handle back in its sleeve, for casing, tourniquets. She zipped it up. Then we come down off this mountain, she said, and we don't separate until someone with a badge and a chain of command I can verify shows up in person. She looked at Yoon. Your legal team, how long to get someone physical, not just on a phone? Yoon said, 6 hours. I have a place we can wait. She looked at the room. All of us. Together. Nobody argued. Coming down the mountain was harder than going up. Not the terrain, the weight of everything that hadn't been said yet. May drove. Yoon took the passenger seat without being asked, which she noted and didn't comment on. Do-hyun followed in the second vehicle with 2 of Yoon's men. Sora sat in the back with Jin-soo, who had fallen asleep against her arm before they'd cleared the tree line. The mountain road curved and dropped and May took it steady, one eye on the rearview, one on the switchbacks ahead. After a long silence, Yoon said, How did you know to move him so fast? When he arrived at the clinic. I didn't know anything, May said. The road had headlights on it, and he had a word on his wrist. That was enough. Most people would have called the police. The police in Crestfall is one man named Dale who's 63 years old. She kept her eyes on the road. And the boy said bad men. He didn't say I'm lost. Those are different situations. Yoon looked at her profile for a moment. You've seen a lot of bad situations. Yes. Where? Everywhere they sent me. She downshifted for a steep section. 2 deployments. Forward operating base outside Kandahar. 18 months in a level 2 trauma unit in Djibouti. She paused. I came back here because this is where I'm from. And because it's quiet. Until tonight. Until tonight. Another stretch of silence. Trees moving past the windows. The sky getting lighter on the eastern ridge. She never told me, Yoon said. May didn't pretend not to know who he meant. Would it have changed anything? Back then. He didn't answer right away. That was its own answer. I don't know who I was back then, he said finally. I know who I am now. May drove. Didn't respond to that directly. Just said, he asked if you were going to be around for a while. I heard. That's not a casual question from a 7-year-old. That's him telling you something. Yoon looked straight ahead through the windshield. I know, he said. May's house was 3 miles past the clinic. A wide porch, wood frame construction, 2 outbuildings. She'd lived there alone for 6 years. It showed not in neglect, but in the particular tidiness of someone who had stopped preparing for other people. She put coffee on, pulled a second table from the spare room, and set it up in the kitchen so everyone had somewhere to sit. Do-hyun and his men took positions outside without being asked, which she appreciated. Sora laid Jin-soo on the couch and covered him with the blanket May brought out. He didn't wake up. His chest rose and fell in the deep, total way that children sleep when they've finally decided they're safe. Sora stood over him for a moment. Then she came to the kitchen. The 3 of them sat around May's table with coffee in front of them. Yoon said, I need to say something. Sora looked at her cup. I'm not going to make this complicated, he said. I'm not going to ask you for anything except to let me be in his life. Whatever that looks like. Whatever terms you set. He stopped. I know what I cost you. I know why you ran. Sora said, you didn't cost me anything. I made a choice. Sora. I'm serious. She looked up. I don't want an apology. She stopped. Looked back at the cup. I want him to grow up knowing someone chose to stay. That's all. The kitchen was quiet. Rain had started again outside, the soft kind, tapping on the porch roof. May got up and stood at the window looking out at the dark yard. She gave them the silence. At 11 a.m., a black sedan pulled up May's gravel drive and a woman in a charcoal suit got out with a leather case and a federal ID she held up before she reached the porch steps. Her name was Agent Carla Mercer, DOJ Internal Affairs. She came alone, which May had asked for, and she'd driven from Helena, not flown, which meant she'd been mobilized before dawn. May met her at the door. Mercer said, "You've had a complicated 12 hours. That's one word." Mercer looked past her into the house. Saw Yoon at the kitchen table. Saw Do-hyun. Saw Sora standing by the hallway. "Are they all here voluntarily?" "Yes," May said. "Good." Mercer stepped inside. She set her case on the table and opened it and took out a recorder and a legal pad. "Then let's go in order." It took 4 hours. Mercer recorded everything. She asked clean questions and wrote down the answers in a precise, tight hand and didn't react to anything, not Sora's account of the weapons pipeline, not Yoon's documentation of Briggs' routing codes, not May's description of the 4 men she'd put down on the granite shelf. At one point Yoon's legal team joined by video call, 3 attorneys, a senior partner in New York, 2 associates. They cross-referenced dates and manifest numbers with Mercer's office in real time. Jin-soo woke up at noon, came to the kitchen doorway, looked at all the adults around the table, and went back to the couch. May followed him out with a sandwich. He ate it without complaint and asked if he could watch something on her phone. She handed it over. He put headphones in. She went back to the kitchen. By 2 p.m., Mercer had everything she needed. She packed her case, turned off the recorder, and stood up. Briggs was detained at the Helena airport at 8:47 this morning, she said. He had a passport issued under a secondary identity. He's in federal custody. The injunction he filed against the file release was denied at 10 a.m. She looked at the room. "You're not going to have to run anymore." Sora looked at her. "What about the Splinter faction?" 9 individuals in custody. 2 more we're still locating. Mercer looked at Yoon. "Your containers will be held pending audit. Your name isn't on the orders. The routing codes clear you." That said, "I'd stay in the country for the next 30 days. "I intend to," Yoon said. Mercer nodded. Looked at May last. "You want to press charges against the 4 men from the shelf?" "What charges realistically stick?" "Trespassing, attempted unlawful detention, possibly assault. Given who they work for, they'll flip on Briggs for reduced terms." "Then let them flip," May said. "I don't need the charges." Mercer picked up her case. "I'll be in touch." She looked at the table, all 4 of them, May, Yoon, Sora, Do-hyun standing by the wall. "You people are lucky the timeline worked out the way it did." "We know," May said. Mercer left. The house got quiet again. A different quiet from before. Not the held breath kind. Just regular afternoon quiet, someone moving in another room, rain still tapping, Jin-soo laughing at something on May's phone in the living room. Do-hyun stepped outside to make calls. Yoon stayed at the table. Sora poured herself a second cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. May was at the sink washing the cups from the morning. She heard Sora come up beside her. Sora picked up a dish towel. Started drying. They stood there for a minute just doing that. "You know you don't have to do that," May said. "I know." Sora dried a cup. "Set it down. I've been running for 2 years. I don't really know what to do when I stop." May handed her another cup. "You figure it out. Just like that." "Nope. Not just like that. It takes a while. But you figure it out." She looked at the window above the sink. "I've been out of the army for 6 years, and I'm still figuring it out." Sora looked at her. "You seem like you have it figured out." "I seem like I've been alone long enough to get used to it." "That's different." Sora was quiet for a beat. "He's going to want to say thank you," she said. "Yoon. He doesn't know how. He's trying to figure out the right words. He doesn't owe me words. He's going to say them anyway." May turned off the tap. Dried her hands. Looked through the kitchen doorway to where Jin-soo was on the couch, legs kicked up, completely absorbed in whatever was on her phone. Then to where Yoon had moved to the couch armchair near the boy. He wasn't talking. Just sitting close. Reading something on his phone or pretending to. Either way there. May said, "He just needs to stay. That'll cover it." Later, on the porch. Yoon found her there as the sun started going down behind the western ridge. She was in the chair with a cold cup of coffee and the particular expression of someone who had been running on 3 hours of sleep and adrenaline for 20 hours and had only just noticed. He sat down in the other chair without asking. They watched the sky go orange and then purple over the pines. After a while he said, "What do you want?" She looked at him. "Not as payment," he said. I'd like to know. What do you actually want? For yourself. May looked back at the sky. Long pause. I want to keep running my clinic, she said. I want to sleep past 5 a.m. sometime this year. She paused. I want the boy to be okay. He will be. I know. A beat. I want to know he's okay. That's different from knowing he will be. She turned her cup in her hands. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know he's okay. Yoon looked at her for a moment. Then you'll know. I'll make sure of it. May didn't respond to that immediately. The porch light flickered on automatically. Moths came out. You should get some sleep, she said. So should you. I will. She didn't move. Neither did he. 3 days passed. May reopened the clinic on the second morning. Word had gotten around Crestfall that something had happened on the mountain. There were federal vehicles seen on the service road, and Dale, the 63-year-old sheriff, had stopped by May's porch and asked, in the careful way of a man who didn't want too much information, if everything was all right. Everything's fine, Dale, she said. Those were some real official-looking folks coming through. Federal forestry audit, she said. Signal equipment on the ridge. Dale looked at her for a moment. Uh-huh, he said. And left. Sora and Jinsu stayed at May's house those 3 days. Yoon stayed at the one motel in Crestfall, 12 minutes down the road, which was 3 stars on a good day. He didn't complain. Every morning he drove to May's house and sat on the porch while Sora and Jinsu had breakfast inside. May would come out with a cup and sit in the other chair, and they wouldn't say very much. He was working calls, documentation, statements to his legal team. She was reading or looking at the ridge. On the second morning, Jinsu came out with a piece of paper and a pencil and sat on the porch steps. What are you drawing? Yoon asked. All of us, Jinsu said. He drew without looking up for 20 minutes. When he was done, he held it up. 4 figures. One tall woman with a small cross on her shirt. One shorter woman with sharp lines around her. One tall man with a square jaw. One small figure in the middle of all of them. That's pretty good, Yoon said. I know. Jinsu looked at it. I'm going to put it on the wall. Which wall? Jinsu thought about it. Looked at May's house. Looked at Yoon. Both, he said. On the third morning, Mercer called May. Briggs entered a guilty plea this morning, she said. He's cooperating fully on the weapons pipeline. His deputy and 3 other officials named so far. A pause. Yoon's containers have been cleared. The Splinter faction leader gave a full statement. All 9 are being charged. And the case against Yoon's organization? No case. The routing evidence is clean. His counsel did good work. Mercer paused again. This is done, Ms. Dolan. What you did up there, it's done. May stood in her kitchen with the phone to her ear for a moment after Mercer hung up. Then she put the phone down and went to the living room doorway. It's done, she said. Sora looked up from the couch. Yoon looked up from the chair. Jinsu looked up from the floor where he was building something out of May's spare tongue depressors and medical tape. Done means what? He said. Done means the bad men are in trouble now instead of us. He thought about that. Nodded slowly. Good. He went back to building. They left that afternoon. Not all at once. Do-hyun packed the vehicles first. Yoon's men had been quietly cycling out for the past 2 days, back to Seattle, back to Seoul. By noon it was just Yoon and Do-hyun, and Sora with 2 bags, and Jinsu with his drawing rolled and rubber banded in his hand. May stood on the porch. Sora came up the porch steps and hugged her. Not a brief hug. The kind that means something specific. I know what you did, and I know you won't say it was a big deal, and I'm saying it was. May hugged her back just as hard. Sora pulled back. Looked at her. Come visit us. Where are you going? Sora looked at Yoon loading the truck. Looked back. We haven't decided. Somewhere that isn't hiding. That's a good start. Jinsu came up the steps and stood in front of May. Very formal, the way small children are formal when they've decided something matters. Thank you for keeping me safe, he said. May crouched down. Looked at him straight. You kept yourself safe, she said. You followed every instruction. You didn't panic. You counted to 100. She tilted her head. That was you. Jinsu considered this seriously. Then he held out the rolled drawing. This one's for your wall, he said. May took it. Held it in both hands. I'll put it in the clinic, she said. So everyone who comes in can see it. He smiled. Genuinely the wide, unguarded kind. For a moment he looked like just a kid. Just a regular 7-year-old on a normal afternoon. Then Sora called him, and he ran down the porch steps. Yoon was last. He came up the steps slowly. He was carrying a card. He set it on the porch railing. My legal team's number is on the back, he said. If anything comes back, anything administrative, any contact from Briggs Associates, anything, you call that number, and it goes to the top of the list. Immediately. All right. The clinic. He paused. There's a federal rural healthcare grant. My foundation funds the matching contributions. I had them look at Crestfall 2 months ago before any of this. The application is already in the system. He looked at her. I'm telling you now so you don't think it's connected. May looked at the card. Is it connected? I don't think the timing is a coincidence, he said. But the need was real before I ever knew this town existed. That part's true. She picked up the card. Okay, she said. He held out his hand. She shook it. He held it a second longer than a handshake required. Thank you. I don't have a word that's actually big enough. But thank you. May said, take care of him. I will. I mean that as a statement, she said. Not a suggestion. He looked at her for a moment. Something crossed his face that she couldn't fully read, not quite a smile, not quite not one. I know, he said. He went down the steps. Got into the vehicle. Dohayan pulled out of the gravel drive slowly. The second vehicle followed. May stood on the porch and watched them go down the road until they turned at the county junction and disappeared. The road was empty. The pines moved. A hawk crossed the ridge in a long, slow arc. May looked at the rolled drawing in her hand. She unrolled it slowly. Looked at it. The 4 figures. The small one in the middle. She rolled it back up carefully. Went inside. Closed the door. That night, she was cleaning up the clinic, resetting the supply room, restocking what she'd taken from the kit bag when her phone rang. Unknown number. Montana area code, but she didn't recognize it. She answered. Silence for a beat. Then a voice she didn't know. A man. Calm and precise. Ms. Dolan. We haven't spoken. But I think it's time we did. May set down the bandage roll in her hand. Who is this? Someone who's been watching the Briggs case for a long time, the voice said. Longer than Sora. Longer than Yoon. A pause. And someone who knows that the weapons pipeline didn't start with Briggs. May didn't move. What do you mean it didn't start with him? He was a distribution point, the voice said. Not the source. Another pause, deliberate, like someone used to making sure words landed where they were aimed. The source is still active. Still running. And they know Yoon's name is in the news now. The clinic was very quiet. They're going to want to clean up loose ends, the voice said. And Ms. Dolan, your name is in Briggs' statement. May looked at the window. The dark road outside. The tree line beyond it. Same road. Same trees. Are you calling to warn me? She said. I'm calling because you're the only person in this chain who has no reason to lie to me. A beat. And because I think you're going to need to make a choice. Fairly soon. What kind of choice? The voice said, the same kind you made 3 days ago when you opened that door. The line went quiet. Not disconnected. Still open. Waiting. May stood in her clinic with the phone in her hand and the bandage roll on the counter and jeansuits drawing on the wall above the supply shelf. The 4 figures slightly crooked in the way children draw, honest and uneven and exactly right. She looked at it. She put the phone back to her ear. Tell me everything, she said. Just like that, another door opens. May Dolan is not done. Yoon Jae-won is not done. And this story is only getting started. If this hit you the way I think it did, hit that like button right now. Subscribe, drop a comment and tell me, did you see that ending coming? Because there is so much more where this came from.